They tell you to celebrate the end of a lifetime of work. Give you a gold watch, a glass of champagne, a pat on the back. What they don't tell you is that sometimes the danger doesn't wait for retirement. It arrives with cake. You spend your life believing you'll see betrayal coming, like it'll show up in headlights. Flashy, loud, obvious. But when it happens, it's quiet. It hides behind a toast, behind polite smiles and perfume, behind a family that knows how to smile through its secrets. The night of my retirement party, I raised a glass to 53 years of honest work. The crowd clapped like they meant it, but she didn't clap. Kelsey, my daughter-in-law, she watched me drink, and just before it all went dark, I heard her whisper, "It had to be done." That night started like any other family occasion, with too many voices, too many opinions, and someone bringing wine no one really liked. The place looked beautiful. My wife Linda went above and beyond with the arrangements. Candlelight flickered gently against the linen-covered tables. Soft jazz trickled from a Bluetooth speaker tucked behind the buffet table. Someone ordered shrimp cocktails, even though I'm allergic. A small oversight, or maybe a familiar one. Everyone was dressed well enough to pretend we weren't, breaking apart underneath it. All Linda had that golden sort of grace about her, the kind people envy in someone who knows how to smile through storms they've already cried through. She wore a navy blue dress that reminded me of our engagement night. Her hand on my shoulder felt warm. Grounding Mark, our son, looked ... tired. Not work tired. Worn, tired. The kind of tired you wear in your eyes after years of pretending something is fine when it's rotting behind. Closed doors, and then there was Kelsey. Poised, fragile in demeanor, but sharp underneath, like a wine glass you drop, and it cuts you on the way down. She always knew how to make her presence feel like both a hug and a trap. She kissed me on the cheek and told me, "Happy retirement, Dad." The words were sweet. The tone, ... sterile, like she rehearsed it in the car. I smiled anyway. You learn to do that as a father. You smile through instinct, through discomfort, through little betrayals that start small, like silence during dinner or side eyes no one addresses. I stood near the front of the room, ready to deliver that final speech everyone expected, the one where I thank my team, reflect on the old days, and joke about finally learning how to use a lawnmower. People applauded, flashed their phones, raised their plastic flutes of champagne, and that's when I saw her, Kelsey. She hovered over the drink they'd placed up front for me, just beside the microphone where I'd lift it for the final toast. Her fingers moved quickly, like she dropped something in and tried to fish it out. Her eyes darted to mine, then locked down immediately, too fast. My heartbeat stuttered, but I smiled through it. Maybe it was nothing, but it didn't feel like nothing. I walked to the mic, thanked the crowd, joked about Linda being the real boss of the household. Then I lifted the glass, and she was watching. Not with pride, not with affection, but ... anticipation, like she was waiting for something. I drank just one sip, enough to test. The bitterness arrived fast, metallic, faintly chalky under the bubbles. The taste of something pretending to be champagne, or worse, something inside champagne. And that's when the world began to melt. At first, I thought it was just the emotions. Retirement hitting me all at once. But the lights blurred. Jazz became static. Faces began to swirl. And when I opened my mouth to say something more, something deeper, nothing came out but a slurred breath. Then came the whisper, close to my ear, hot against my cheek. "Kelsey, ... it had to be done." I heard her, clear as day. My knees failed. The floor collapsed beneath me. But even as my body gave way, my mind refused to shut down. I laid there on that polished wood dance floor, staring up at the soft chandelier lights, flickering like stars through water. The room spun, but in the growing silence, I made one promise to myself. I'm going to remember this. Every second, every choice. I woke up to the soft hum of fluorescent lights, the kind that don't flicker. They just press down on you, constant, cold, sterile. Like time doesn't pass in hospitals. It just lingers. My eyes burned. My mouth was dry. The kind of dry no water pitcher can fix. Not when you've swallowed betrayal, even a sip of it. There was a heart monitor to my left, beeping steadily, for in my arm, a gray plastic cup on the tray beside me, filled with half-melted ice. I stared at it for a long time. Then I registered the warmth. Linda, she was sitting beside the bed, tucked into one of those stiff hospital chairs, hands folded like she was praying for calm or forgiveness. Her eyes were red, puffy. Her wedding ring spun slowly on her finger, like it had a habit of wandering, too. When she saw me open my eyes, the tears came instantly. And she whispered, "Thank God. I thought you'd left me." I forced a smile. That's the cruel thing with pain. You still find ways to comfort the ones who might have helped cause it. "I'm still here," I rasped, "but it's quiet. Feels wrong." She reached out, brushed my hair back from my forehead. "You scared us, babe?" I wanted to ask, did I scare you? Or did Kelsey's timing misfire? But I didn't. Not yet. Instead, I did what I hadn't done in years. I pretended to forget. I told Linda I didn't remember the party. Not the toast, not the food, not the collapse. Her face softened. Maybe in relief, maybe something else. But that mask of concern, it stayed too perfectly in place. The doctors said it was alcohol and exhaustion. I asked, "Did you test my blood?" They nodded. Clean, no allergens, no toxins. Healthy as a man can be who collapsed in front of a crowd just hours earlier. Too clean. Like someone scrubbed the evidence before anyone could check twice. The first visitor was Mark. He didn't come alone, and he didn't come first. Kelsey walked in before him. She held a bouquet of white hydrangeas, his idea of her. Being thoughtful, and laid them by the window, like Satosh. I cared about flowers when my own pulse was still betraying me with every weak thump. She smiled the moment she saw me, wide, bright, too confident for someone who just watched her father-in-law hit the floor. "You're awake." "Oh, thank God. We were so worried." Ha! Watched her hands as she spoke, smooth, no tremble. She approached my bed like nothing had happened. Like the words that had to be done had never passed her lips. Mark stayed behind her, back by the door, arms crossed like he was more interested in the exit than his father waking up. His eyes darted, from me to Kelsey to the floor. I said nothing for a moment. Just watched, then I spoke low. "Quiet, don't look so guilty." Mark flinched. Kelsey tilted her head. "What do you mean?" I smiled again. That same hollow one must have been some party. They left after 20 minutes of small talk. Kelsey told me she'd bring chicken soup tomorrow. Mark promised to check on the accounts for me, some retirement number stuff. I kept unfinished in a folder at home. I nodded through it all, but inside, I was watching them like a hawk. Because now, I wasn't a father anymore. I was a witness. That night, while scrolling through the old bedside phone, I caught a call from an unfamiliar number. I let it go to voicemail. Later, when the phone buzzed again, I grabbed it, thinking it might be Linda. Instead, it was Kelsey's name on the screen. I answered, casual. Faked a cough. "Hey Kelsey, must have called me by mistake." There was a moment, just one breath too long of silence. Then, "Oh, yes, sorry, meant to call your son." Her voice was calm. But in that pause, something wavered. I pretended to fumble with the phone and the camera app opened, accidentally. At least, that's what they thought. Kelsey had texted someone moments earlier, a name I didn't recognize. No emojis, no context. Just one sentence, "It's done. He won't wake up." I snapped a mental photo of it and slowly put the phone back on the tray. The nurse came in right after. Late 30s, soft-spoken. The kind of bedside manner you only get from someone who still believes in mercy. She handed me a small cardboard shoebox. "Someone left this for you. No name," she said. "We thought it might be personal." Inside the box was a photo, an old one. I was holding Mark. He must have been 2, maybe less. That stage where their weight feels full, but innocent. He had my hat on, crooked and oversized, giggling at something I can no longer remember. I looked young, tired, but proud. Underneath the photo was a slip of yellowed paper, torn at the edges. One line typed, not written. "Don't trust your son." I let the words settle, not because they shocked me, but because, deep down, I already had. Coming home didn't feel like coming home. Everything was where I left it. shoes by the door, Linda's half-finished crossword on the kitchen table, the faint ticking of the old wall clock that had been stuck at 8:47 for over a decade. But something was different. The air felt staged. Like the walls had practiced their silence while I was gone. Linda hovered near me like a nurse instead of a wife, offering broth, fluffing pillows, avoiding eye contact that lasted too long. I didn't falter for it, not then. It's hard to look someone in the eyes when you're not sure what they remember, but I remembered everything. The nights were the hardest. Softer lights, longer shadows. Kelsey and Mark would come by with bags of groceries, and those fake, high-pitched voices people use when they're around someone they think is slipping. Kelsey always unloaded the groceries herself, which meant she quietly shuffled through the drawers, the cabinets, the desk where I used to keep the spare house key and bank info. I wasn't supposed to notice. And to them, I did and single quotes. Mark sat beside me one evening, fidgeting with a coaster, pretending like this awkward new version of us was normal. He attempted a joke. I half laughed. He asked about my retirement fund. I asked why. He answered too quickly, something about consolidating accounts for ease. Said he just wanted to help. The last time he offered to help, I found out he had taken $3,000 from our emergency savings to pay off a gambling debt. I never told Linda. I should have. There's something heavy about watching a man who used to look like you become someone you don't recognize. Mark wasn't always this way. He used to ride on my shoulders at the county fair while gripping 2 ice creams, and I'd laugh through the sticky drips running down my neck. He once cried because the neighbor's dog bit a squirrel, and he didn't want the squirrel to be alone in the dark. That kid, that version of him, vanished the year Kelsey came around at first. I didn't think much of her. Smart, charming, driven, polite. Not warmth, but correct. She greeted us with a smile that looked like it cost effort. But then came the slow cuts. The weekends Mark used to call. He'd forget. The holidays he'd spend with us. Shorter and shorter. Arguments turned into silence. And whenever I confronted him, he didn't respond. She did. She's got goals, Linda would say. Mark needs someone to push him. Yeah, well, eventually, the push becomes a shove, then a chain. One night, about a week after I got home, couldn't sleep. I drifted to the upstairs. Hallway creaked floorboards and a light drizzle outside, tapping the windows. I moved slowly, quietly. Their voices were muffled at first, coming from the guest room. Their temporary space during their stay to help me recover arrangement. Mark's tone was panicked. We should have waited. He's not as out of it as they said. My breath caught. Kelsey, sharp and low, but clear. Then let's make sure he is. Silence. Then the sound of a drawer shutting. I stepped back before the door opened, slid into the hallway shadows like a man who didn't belong in his own life anymore. Back in our bedroom, I sat on the edge of the bed until morning. Linda stirred once. I said nothing. What could I say? That our son sounded like he was complicit in something unimaginable. That our daughter-in-law whispered threats like bedtime lullabies. No, I needed proof. The next day, when Linda went to the pharmacy and Kelsey took a phone call outside, I slipped into the home office. It's where I kept my retirement binders. Login passwords, the boring relics of a man who worked 5 decades and saved. Every time he could have splurged, I sat slowly at my desk, booted up the computer, and my palms went cold. Login attempt history 3 on Thursday at 2 a.m. I was in the hospital bank portal, accessed from Mark's city address. How careless. How arrogant. I checked the balances, my 401k. Intact, my side investment portfolio. Untouched. Then I opened the rainy day fund, the one Linda and I were using to plan our trip to Ireland. A trip I'd been dreaming about since 9 to D's, drained. Every last cent. Wiped clean. I stared at the screen for a full minute, listening to the refrigerator hum in the distance. Then something bizarre happened. I smiled, not from humor, from recognition. This is who they've become. And now, finally, I could stop lying to myself. That night, as the rain thickened and the wind picked at the window panes, I poured myself a glass of water and stood in the living room alone. The photo wall stared back at me. Family vacations, birthdays, That Christmas, where Mark got a telescope and cried because he thought he could see heaven with it, I rested my hand on the frame, tracing Linda's face, then mine. Then I whispered to myself, it doesn't matter what they took. What matters is what I'm willing to lose next. Because the next move was mine. They say storms bring clarity. I don't know if that's true, but the night I laid the table for truth, the rain hadn't stopped for hours. Not the gentle kind. No, this was the kind that pounds the roof like it's trying to warn you. Wind snapping the gutter. Streetlights flickering like they were second-guessing themselves. I stood in the kitchen, lone, setting plates, real ceramic dishes. Not paper cloth napkins folded the way Linda used to do them when Mark was a boy. There was something sacred about doing it like that, like a funeral you throw for a version of your family that no longer exists. Across the house, Linda came around the corner with tired eyes and a small shake of her head. You sure about this? She asked. Yes, I said. Tonight, please. Not tonight, she said. Her voice was delicate, almost rehearsed. But I just looked at her, held it, she knew, and she walked away. Kelsey and Mark arrived late. Typical. Even guilt can't make a person punctual. They brought a store-bought pie and nervous smiles. Kelsey made a joke about traffic, but her eyes darted to the table. She noticed the effort. That I'd said it with memories. Maybe she took it as sentiment. It was actually strategy. I offered wine. Mark declined. Kelsey took one generous pour, dry red, still breathing. We sat, tea. I passed the serving spoons in silence. No phones, television, just the sound of the storm outside and clock hands ticking like a warning. Then I began. So, I said, cutting into the meatloaf, let's talk about money. The fork clinked against Mark's plate. He blinked, caught off guard. We don't have to. Mark tried. No, I said, calm. We do. Kelsey straightened up. Everything all right with your accounts? She asked, painfully smooth. I smiled. I don't know. Should I ask whoever logged into them from your apartment last week? That was the first crack. Mark glanced at her. Kelsey froze. Wasn't anything serious, she said slowly. Just checking for Linda. That paperwork you mentioned needing help with. I never asked you to touch my investment portfolio, Kelsey. The room quieted, except for the thunder outside. Linda wordlessly reached for her water. I turned to Mark. You knew? Mark didn't answer, so I stood up, slow. I think it's time we stop pretending we're playing house. I walked to the cupboard and pulled out the small, worn shoebox. Set it down in the center of the table. Opened it. The photograph lay on top. Me holding baby Mark, cheeks thick with laughter neither of us had anymore. And beneath it, the note typed, torn. Truthful. Kelsey looked at it like it burned her fingers from across the table. Mark squinted, confused. What is this? The truth, I said. In pieces. I placed a flash drive beside it. Security footage from the hallway cam I installed last week, I said. Audio from your bedroom. Conversations you didn't think I could hear. Kelsey's face dropped. The performance was done. Mark turned pale. Then he whispered, Jesus. Dad? Why? Why? Because I nearly died. 'Cause I'll be damned if I let you both eat lasagna over my grave. He opened his mouth, but Kelsey spoke first. And what would you have done? Huh? If you really knew what it was like living with you? Her voice cracked with venom. You think you were some loving patriarch. You ruled everything with your expectations. Mark couldn't breathe around you. He never made decisions unless they passed through you like some divine approval stamp. Honey? Mark whispered. No, she snapped. Tell him how you hated going home. Tell him how you said you felt small, powerless. Mark shut his eyes. Kelsey leaned in, and he still protected you. Even when he didn't have to. I stayed quiet. Silence filled the room, not peace. But the kind that hurts. Then I spoke. Is that why you drugged my drink? Kelsey blinked with mock innocence, but her voice cracked again. I didn't drug you. Then what did you do? She laughed, bitter. I slipped a mild sedative, something to make you rest at the party. You weren't going to cooperate, and Mark needed you to sign the transfer forms soon. I misjudged the dose. Mark gasped. You said it was just Benadryl? I panicked. She yelled. After the chest thing last winter, I thought he'd run out the clock and never retire. He was never going to let go, Mark. Then she turned to me, steel returning to her voice. You were never going to let go of anything. And you, I said quietly, were never going to stop lying. The room tightened, like the walls themselves wanted the truth out. Kelsey's hands curled into fists. I did what I did, because nobody else would stand up to you. And Mark, he trusted me, because that's what love looks like when you're drowning. Mark, shaking now, finally spoke. I didn't know she'd... I swear, I thought it was just a push. His voice cracked. I just wanted to breathe. My mouth stayed closed. Then Kelsey slammed her wine glass down, liquid spilling onto the tablecloth like blood from a wound. You want to hate me? Fine. But at least I gave him something he never got from you, a chance to pick his own damn life. Then it happened. Linda exhaled, not angry, not frustrated, just broken. And she whispered, soft like paper, slow like guilt. I knew. Everyone turned. I knew what she was doing, she said. I didn't know everything, not the drink. But I knew she was turning him against you. I could feel it. I didn't have the strength to stop it. She looked down at her lap, her voice barely held together. You were strong enough for the both of us, always. I just let it happen. Rain battered the windows like applause from an invisible jury, and I sat, feeling every year in my bones all at once. The house was quiet after she left, not peaceful, just empty. After the dinner, after the confession, after Kelsey's breakdown, she didn't come back. No suitcase, no argument, no goodbye, just gone. Mark didn't chase her, and I didn't ask him to. Turns out, some things leave screaming and others leave in silence. But either way, once they're gone, the echo's still loud. The next few mornings felt like walking through the bones of something that used to be alive. The kitchen didn't have her mug on the counter. That smell of her oversprayed perfume didn't linger in the hallway. For the first time in months, maybe years, my home didn't feel like a stage, just four walls. And us, Mark, crashed in the guest room. Didn't say much, didn't need to. Grief isn't always about death. Sometimes it's about realizing the person you loved never loved you clean. He was hollow for a while, just going through movements. Taking walks that didn't lead anywhere. Fixing things that didn't need fixing. He made coffee too strong. Forgot to say grace before dinner. Sat in the living room at night, thumbing the remote like he was trying to change the channel on his life. Linda suggested therapy, quietly, almost like she was ashamed the word came from her mouth. Mark agreed before she even finished. That's how I knew he was serious. And I went. 2, not because I believe someone sitting across a circle with a clipboard can fix what's been broken for decades, but because I figured maybe the trying mattered more than the solution. Funny thing is, no one teaches you how to forgive someone who isn't sure if they deserve it. But maybe forgiveness isn't a clean cut. Maybe it's giving someone room to live with the weight of what they've done without trying to bury them in it. About a week later, Mark and I sat on the porch with a couple of chipped mugs and an awkward kind of stillness between us. There wasn't a grand apology. It's just a slow, careful walk around it. I don't know what I was thinking, he said, quietly. I thought I was protecting her. From you, but maybe I was just afraid of standing on my own for once. I didn't say anything right away. Just watched a bird hop across the railing like it didn't know we were having a sin. Conversation that took 20 years to begin. Finally, I said, it's easier to blame someone stronger than to admit you've chosen weakness. Mark nodded, like it hurt. Then came the part that actually mattered. He looked over and said softly, I failed you, Dad, as a son. And as a man. Now, I could have said 1,000 things. Things I rehearsed in my head when I thought he'd never say it. But when the moment came, I tapped his shoulder and said, then start over. Not for me, for you. He didn't cry. Just sat a little straighter after that. Linda and I, we found our way back in slow, tiny ways. Old home movies on the TV during quiet weekends. Her hand back in mine at the grocery store, sitting close again without a reason. One night, I saw her thumbing through the Ireland travel binder we'd made years ago. The one we'd shelved after the whole mess started. She smiled, gentle, shy, and asked, still want to go? I said, I never wanted to go alone. Time passed. Not big, dramatic time, just slow steps. One ordinary moment after another. Empty conversations turned into real ones. Mark re-enrolled in a remote course he'd abandoned years ago. Poetry, of all things. I didn't laugh, just nodded, and a few boxes of Kelsey's things sat untouched in the garage, like they were waiting for someone brave enough to toss them, or forgive them. Both take strength. We weren't there yet, but we were. Close then. One rainy afternoon, nothing spectacular about it. I opened my drawer, looking for a pen, and I stopped. Tucked inside was a folded piece of photo paper. Old, soft, the kind that yellow around the edges if they've waited too long to be seen. Inside was a photo. Mark, maybe 8 years old, sitting on my shoulders. His hands were clasping my head like steering a ship. I remember that day. We were at the fair. He wanted cotton candy, and I got dizzy, spinning him around like he was still 3. We laughed like fools. On the back, written in black ink, I found one line. I remember now. I'm sorry, Dad. Just that, no signature. Didn't need one. There's something honest about winter. It doesn't dress the truth in flowers or soften it with sunshine. It just strips everything bare. Shows you what survives after the leaves fall and the noise dies down. It had been months since the dinner. Since Kelsey left. Since my son found the courage to face himself for the first time in years. And in that time, something new moved into the spaces betrayal used to live in. Not peace, not exactly, but stillness. And stillness, I've learned, is a better rebuild than most people give it credit for. I made it a habit to visit the park every Saturday. Same bench, same coffee. There's an old oak across from where I sit. Deep roots, weather-beaten branches. Strong, even as time tries to wear it down season by season. I watch its limbs bend under snow and bounce back with spring. That's where I write, not much, just thoughts. Bits of memory. Questions I never got to ask. Regrets I stopped letting fester. I don't write to remember. I write to release legacy. It's funny, we grow up thinking we'll be remembered by our roles, our job titles, the house we leave behind, whatever's in the will, but no one remembers your bank balance. What they remember are the choices you made, the words that hurt or healed, the little moments where they knew who you were, really were, when nobody else was watching. And I think that's the part Kelsey could never quite understand. She thought legacy was about power, about winning, but I've learned, ... Legacy is actually about how much weight you allow your pain to carry on. How much hurt you're willing to pass down in your family's name and call it just how things are. I didn't want to pass mine on anymore. Mark still visits. Not every day, not every weekend, but enough we talk. Mostly small things. Sometimes deeper things. He asks questions he never used to care about. Not just about money or advice. He asks about me, the man behind Dad, like he's finally looking for the parts that make sense of his own mess. Some days, he shows up with old family videos. Last time, he brought one of us playing catch in the driveway. I was wearing a bad mustache, and he was wearing a helmet 2 sizes too big. We laughed. Not the kind that forgets, but the kind that forgives. Linda's forgiveness happened differently, quieter, in cups of tea, in hands gently grazing mine when we pass in the hallway, in the way she started humming again while cooking. There's power in those little songs. She doesn't know I notice. Truth is, we never addressed it out loud again, not in detail. Some sorrows don't need autopsies to heal, but Linda did leave a letter on my nightstand one morning. 3 lines. You were right to hold the line. I was wrong to let it. Blur thought, thank you for staying present, even when I looked away. That's all it said. And it was enough. I used to think forgiveness was weakness, that if you let people back in after they hurt you, it meant they'd learn it was safe to do it again. But I see it differently now. Forgiveness isn't forgetting. It's not pretending it didn't happen. It's saying, yes, it happened, and I choose to not let it steal another day from me. It's not for them, it's for you. Because when you don't let go, you carry them with you. Long after they're gone, and they never even feel the weight. Only you do. The snow started falling lightly this morning. First of the season, tiny flakes caught in the steam rising from my coffee cup. The bench was cold, but I didn't mind. I zipped my coat up, flipped to a clean page in my journal, and took out the pen Mark gave me on my birthday. Dark blue ink, heavy in the hand. Honest, I wrote. This was the winter I learned that not all poison comes in a glass. Some of it comes in silence, but pain did not win, because love, when its patience still has room to come home. I sat back, took one slow sip, and let the warmth settle where there used to be bitterness. Then I tilted my cup gently toward the sky, as if toasting the storm that tried to break me. To the pain that didn't win. If you've made it this far, thank you, not just for listening to my story, but for sitting with it. Because sometimes what hurts us most doesn't hit like a car crash. It unfolds slowly in rooms we used to call safe, around people we thought could never hurt us, and still, the heart finds a way forward. If this story reminded you of someone you've drifted from, a parent, a child, a partner, maybe today's the day to take one small step back toward them. Not to fix everything, just to show up. That's where healing begins. And if this story moved something in you, if it made you feel less alone or more seen, do me a favor. Like this video, share it with someone who needs it, and subscribe if you'd like to hear more stories like this. Because sometimes, all it takes to start healing ... is one true story told at the right time.